When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
Alright, hello YouTube, welcome back to the GreaseCom YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be talking about an idea that is very close to my heart. I've done a series on them on the Fire and Blood book series. It is going to be on the Maester conspiracy, and we're going to be talking about it specifically within House of the Dragon. Is there this big idea of the Grand Maester conspiracy within the TV show, or is it more just a book-only thing that they're just kind of winking towards? In this video, we're going to discuss what could be there and what probably is. Well, probably what is the idea here? Are there just Maesters that aren't good at their jobs? Or is it more like this specific Maester is buddy-buddy with Otto Hightower? We're going to be discussing all of those type of ideas in this video. But before we get into the video, if you guys like to like, subscribe, and comment for more of this House of the Dragon content, also going to be doing Rings of Power content, and of course, the normal Song of Ice and Fire content. So if you guys like to see that content, subscribe for more of it, and let's get into it. So let's look at a little bit of the evidence that in the show that there could be a Maester conspiracy. One, Viserys continues to have medical problems with rot in his fingers, and the Maesters seem to just not be able to heal him whatsoever. That's very suspicious, especially when Maesters, for the most part, are supposed to be kind of your healers, your doctors, and all of that. Let's also look at another situation that is quite interesting. Viserys' wife dying, right? Is this one of those situations where did the Maester just tell Viserys, hey, your wife's going to die regardless, but we could also try to get your son instead? Was this just a ploy to get them both killed? It's possible. Now, I think the thing that's very interesting here is the Maester, Melos, goes straight to Otto, not to Viserys in the situation. So it's a bit interesting in that regard. So we do know that Melos is a little buddy-buddy with Otto, which makes sense. Otto Hightower comes from Old Town, which is kind of the place of the Maesters, where they come from, basically the Maester College, more or less. So it would make sense that they are pretty buddy-buddy. And that's where a lot of the Maester conspiracy comes from within the book series. Now, a couple other interesting situations here is that in all of these meetings, right, Maester Melos is always backing Otto Hightower. They're always kind of in agreement. They're always kind of doing their manipulation together, right? And that's kind of a big idea. That's where a lot of our evidence come from. Another idea. Why is Maester Melos going to Dragonstone with Otto Hightower when it comes to trying to get the egg back with Daemon? What was going on there, right? There's a theory in the books where the Maesters poisoned the dragon eggs because there's a certain point that the dragon eggs just stop hatching, and it's right after, or it's during and after a period where a Maester is basically in control of the Seven Kingdoms for a good half a year to a year. So there's a lot of ideas here that are presented and kind of winked at the camera, right? Now, why would the House of the Dragon showrunners, Ryan Condal, why would he decide to do this, right? So I think it's not so that there is a Maester conspiracy within House of the Dragon. They've already, especially if you look at episode 3, passed by a couple of events that are very big winks to the Maester conspiracy. That's where a lot of our Maester conspiracy is coming from, right? So I'll just name one event. So this is a big spoiler for House of the Dragon, coming up in probably the next episode, in episode 4. So again, I would skip ahead probably a minute or so if you don't want to know what the spoiler is. So again, spoiler. In the book series, right, when they are talking about Rhaenyra, who she should marry, the only option that is straight up said by the council when they're figuring it out is Laenor Velaryon. And Laenor makes sense for certain reasons because he's a dragon rider, he's part of the Velaryon family. But we know in the book series, everybody in this room, it's very much known, all these people know that Laenor is either bisexual or gay. And they basically just forced this onto Rhaenyra. And the whole idea here is that in the conspiracy theory with the Maesters, is that the Maesters do this because they know Rhaenyra would be unfaithful to Laenor and look for companionship other ways, right? So her, again, more spoilers. Actually, I won't go into this as a spoiler, but certain things happen where the Maesters kind of set up Rhaenyra to fail and the Hightowers. That's part of it. They are already kind of skipping over that with giving Rhaenyra the choice on who she should wed, and Viserys actively trying to set her up with people. That really never happens in the book. And it points a lot to the Maester conspiracy theory because there's so many options Rhaenyra could marry in the books, but we're only given one real option for her, and she's forced upon. She has no say in it at all. So there's so many situations like that that they've already kind of negated and haven't talked about, that I think if they were going to say there's a Maester conspiracy in the show, I think they would have included things like that. So where I think more that they're going with Melos and why he's kind of looked so suspicious is because I think they're trying to play on our knowledge of who's the main other Maester we think of when we look at this time, when we look at Game of Thrones. Pycelle. Pycelle was very politically motivated Maester. He was very much a Tywin Lannister crony, and he straight up lets Jon Arryn die. And Ryan Condal and the people running House of the Dragon know that. So they're going to play into that idea that, okay, let's have Melos do some kind of quote-unquote weird things. And I'm not saying that Melos specifically is not attached to Otto Hightower, because I think he is. We've seen enough evidence that is true, right? But I don't think there's this whole idea where you can go the Grand Maester conspiracy within House of the Dragon, which is, you guys, I think, are going to really be surprised by that, because, again, you guys know how much I distrust the Maesters and how much I don't like the Maesters. I did an entire, I think it was like 4-part series on the Maesters where I go from the council right before the Dance of the Dragons. You see it at the very beginning of House of the Dragons, that council. There's a lot of sketchy stuff that goes on there. There's a ton of stuff leading up to the build-up of the Dance of Dragons, and then there's a bunch of stuff in the House of the Dragon, like, era, time period, which is the Dance of Dragons, where there's a bunch of stuff that happens that's very sketchy, that doesn't make a lot of sense, and then we also get into the after effects, where I was talking about where a Maester actually becomes quote-unquote regent or ruler for quite a bit. That is where a lot of the Maester conspiracy comes from, in that time window. So for me, looking at all those ideas, I would say in House of the Dragon, we do not have a Grand Maester conspiracy. I think there's a minor Maester conspiracy that Melos is in on it with Otto. I think that is very plausible. I think that is very much makes sense, but I just don't think that all the Maesters are in league in the House of the Dragon show. I don't think we've seen enough to make that kind of an argument at this point. But let me know what you guys think, because I do think there are interesting ideas where I think Otto and Melos could be prepping Viserys to die, because they're not getting rid of this rot. They're letting it fester, right? They're not, being strict with Viserys saying, you need to get rid of these fingers. So I think that's an interesting thing to hold on going into the rest of the season. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about the Maesters in the show. Do you guys think there is a Grand Maester conspiracy going on? There's definitely some suspicious things going on, but what do you guys think? What are your guys' thoughts? And I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye, guys.
If you think this has a happy ending, you haven't been paying attention.